Hey, good morning. Let's see. Welcome to training today. Let me just double check that I'm recording.
I need to bring mine.
Yes. Okay. All right. Good morning. So hi, my name is Stephanie Zasiakina, and I am the CEO of InReach Solutions and work with you guys on SAM. And I today wanted to talk to you about new user training. So, depending on who's on, um, we will really, I guess, what are we going to do today? We're going to keep this call on a tour of SAM, making sure that folks know where things are found. We won't be super specific onto your agency's processes, but because that'll vary between agencies. But if you have questions about your processes, I'm happy to go in and check and see if I can figure things out for you while we're on, because I really want this call and all our calls to be as helpful to you in moving forward as we can. Let's jump in here. So our webinar, or our agenda today is to take a tour of the system. I do want to talk to you about some important terms that you should be familiar with, because you'll hear me talk about them. You will hear them or see them within the site, and it'll help you to explore help better. I want to make sure you understand what auto actions, what checklists, what reports are, how they can help your agency, how they can help you do your work better. And then we'll talk about settings. For settings that are different for users, and then those that are administrative. And we'll also talk about getting help. Okay, so ways that you can access help resources and make sure you know where those are. And with that, I'm going to come back to this screen in a bit, but I'm going to actually jump right into SAM. All right, so you'll always be taken to a login screen when you access the URL, which is your SAM site, and some administrator from your organization will actually provide you those login details. Once you log in, especially if it's your first time, let's see. If it's your first time, you'll want to make sure to change your password so that it is a password that you use for yourself to log into SAM. So you can do that, because we'll talk about the first time things under settings, and change my username or password. So this should be unique to you. No one should share passwords. And you might even consider as a team to change passwords occasionally as a best practice, like every 6 months or so. All right, just because this happens to be popping up for me and I don't want to ignore it, it is an auto action that's popping up. So auto actions can send an email, they can update data. This happens to be sending an email. Something has triggered. I think this is going out as like a happy birthday wish to a youth. You might see these pop up, and you can choose to confirm or cancel or snooze this, or you can edit the body, and those kind of things will, I guess, maybe potentially get into a little bit later. I just want to address it because it happens to be right here, really opening up for us. Okay. When you log into SAM every morning, the first screen you'll see is the home page. So brief tour of that is there's a navigation bar which really has the help links there. So support, this will open up a ticketing system where you can email and say, I don't understand XYZ. Okay, send me a request, like I don't know how to do something, or I need help with this. You can do that at any time. There is a help section. I'm going to open in an incognito window because I happen to be also logged in, but when you click it, you will be taken to this screen that allows you to see how to get started. This is a little bit geared towards administrative users, but you can go here. All of our webinars that are recorded are listed here. They're listed by date somewhere. Like, where did that one go? Maybe it's hidden. There is some that is by date, but generally they're also by topic. So are you looking at checklists? Are you looking at case management? Like, what is it that you're aiming to do? You can click into those and see those. You can use this to get back to the beginning and kind of play through these. Another important one might be settings. So email, accounting settings, settings that you're working on. Primarily for users, it's going to be email settings that you'll engage with. You're really just inputting your email password into the site. All right. Also, if you wanted to schedule a call, you're able to do that, and this will take you to our calendar that you can see what times are available. Okay, so now inside SAM, let's talk about other things that are here. These are the main entity types. So as far as a term, an entity is the high level grouping for, are we talking, it's sort of self-explanatory. Are we talking about families? Are we talking about children? Are we talking about organizations or persons? Okay, so the big groups, you may have multiple programs underneath those groups. When you click these tabs, this takes you to a quick search. So you could find all children, let's say that you actually have access to see. You can type in a name by last name. You can also use this drop down if you know the youth's first name, or you have an email, or you know their case ID. Your agency may have other options to select from for this, like a master case number, or maybe some other, like a filing system that you've got outside of SAM, and you've got a number associated with that, is what I guess I commonly see as other options here in the quick search. If your team needs more, that's available too. When you want to access a record, you can click the link that will, where is their name, which is the link that will take you to their record. Okay. And I'm going to jump back to the home page to keep talking about that. That quick search that I showed underneath the tab is the same here that's on the home page, except for it is open to all record types. So if we use a very common name like Smith or Jones or Johnson or something like that, you might have lots of records, and you might actually it might be easier for you to search underneath the tabs. Okay, but it's really the same information here. If I scroll down, like this is a good example of something that's kind of different, is like the birth mother's maiden name. That might be something that you guys are used to looking at, or you know them, or somebody's nickname or something. Like, those will be things that you might search by. Yeah, let me do one more thing here. Let's type this in here. Sam will start looking for records that that match your search criteria on, I think, 3 or 4 fields in. You can see that they're color coded. They're color coded here to match these tabs at the top, and it should be easier to view. In some situations, you may have the same person listed multiple times, and it is because they're within different entity type groupings, right? So this youth is actually in the child, and they're also in the therapy tab as well. Okay, before I leave and go to a record, I guess I want to talk about other things that you'll see here. My task is related to checklists. These are tasks that are associated to me in this time period. So I can change the time period. I can also, well, as a full admin, I can see other users. If you're not a full admin, you won't be able to see other users. You really just can see your own records. To access the record itself, you can click these links here. You can also get to the specific checklist for that record here. Okay, so if I click that, for example, I'm going to be taken a little bit deeper than the cover page and into the specific checklist for this Brad and Tammy Jenkins family. If I want to go home, I've done this a couple of times, but just make sure that that's clear. I can click back and access the home page again. If you open up your system and you actually have called Brad about this home visit, I've scheduled it, I can actually mark this as complete. That check mark on the side will put today's date in on that checklist as saying I'm done with that. Okay. I can also hide tasks to get it up and out of my way. I've seen clients and certain users sites where there's just really a lot of items going on. So it's best used if you utilize it frequently. If you don't, you might end up with a whole bunch, and you might as a team want to discuss like, what does that process actually look like? Is that working for you or not? Another thing that's over here on the home page is this report menu. This report menu is mine. If you log in, you are going to see other reports that are different, right? You may have some that are the same as another role on your team, or it may be really custom to your user. They're also color coded. When you click on it, you'll see the records that exist. You'll actually be taken to that report. The reports that you can see and access are dependent on your permissions. You can edit what reports are available to you right here through this edit link. Let's say, honestly, now I'm sort of second guessing myself as can users who are not full admin actually do that? I'll test it out and see before we get off this call. Let's see. The other things is, my understanding is folks that have been using SAM for a long time actually work off reports quite a lot. So reports can be built for you to show your caseload or your caseload in a particular stage or process of the service that you're providing. It could show families who don't have certain documents or have certain documents, depending on what you need. So lots of reports can be built. I will talk briefly about how do you navigate reports, and there are certainly webinars that talk in greater detail about that. But know that more reports can be built, and they can be built specific for you. It is a full admin role or responsibility to build reports. So you'll have to ask somebody on your team or create a support request, and we can help you with that. But all of the data that's inside of the system can really be pulled under a report if that would be helpful for you. The last thing that I'll talk about here before I go into a record is this vertical bar on the right. It's called the sidebar. And on the home page, you can add records. You may or may not have all of these add links here. It's sort of dependent on the access that you have been given by a full admin or an administrator of your site. But when you click these links, you will be taken to a form that will add a family record into your site. This would be like an inquiry or an intake, kind of up close to the beginning of your process, unless of course you're doing historical records, and then you'll be adding a historical record into the site. Let's see. And the other thing that you'll have here, your view as a non-admin will have a little bit less right here. It will show settings. And the one thing that's here under settings for you will be user settings. So you can customize your report menu. So you can add reports like I talked about, changing your username, resetting your time zone if you don't happen to live in the organization's time zone, right? So if your agency has offices in different states, you might change your time zone from the defaults, and then your email settings so that you can send or import emails from your user. Let's see. Okay, so I think what I want to do now is go into a record, and I'm going to go into a family record, and I'll go into a youth record so you can kind of see the differences, and we can talk about some of the things that are, again, on the sidebar because it's more, that's where we hold the detail. So once a family has, or any record has been added into the site, you'll be taken always and forever to the cover page. And this is really a landing spot for your organization. So these cover pages can be, what do I want to say? They can be customized to your team, and probably somebody, or let's say potentially someone in your organization has already configured it to the way that your organization wants to see the data. And if not, if the system is new to you, I want you to know that this can be done as well. Most forms that we'll look at from here on out can be configured and reorganized into an order that makes sense for you, so you can see the information that's most important for you. By default, basic information. Who are we talking about? The contact information, what type of case is it, who's working on that case, and milestones is what's most prevalent on the cover pages. I do want to talk about the case. The case is really the service level. Within the case, there could, and generally are, other processes that are happening. So it's not that everything will be on the case, but it sort of distinguishes, is this a domestic case or is it an international? Are we just doing the home study? Or for a youth, is this child in foster care, or are they in our adoption program, and which adoption program are they in, or are they in a behavioral health? It's going to be this big sort of umbrella of service that you've got for that record type. Let's see up here. Most of these entity types have cases. Adoptive families, children, birth parents, foster parents all have cases. The organizations and persons do not. These two record types are used for other folks that you work with. So other organizations that your team might partner with, or hospitals that you need to know their contact information. And then people is going to be all your staff, or the staff that make up those organizations that your organization partners with. It could be attorneys, teachers, doctors, people that are connected to your client records as well. Okay. Going back to the case, this case navigation I think is important to talk about here, just so you know. I can toggle between my cases, okay, through these links here. And under advanced options, I can add a new case. This is generally done when, that service is complete, when the adoption is finalized and the family comes back for a new adoption, or if it is a foster family and they have been licensed and then they decide to take a break and come back a couple years later and want to reinstate their license, you're probably going to open a new case for that. For children or youth, we see cases being added of, again, they're in foster care and potentially now they're in adoption. Sometimes that's just a single case of a foster to adopt case. If the child is in foster care, and we've seen this as like they're also in Heart Gallery, or they are also in a behavioral health program, or maybe they're in a mentorship program, you can have different cases for that too. If your team is new to SAM, or you're not sure, that is an opportunity for you to call and schedule help, and we can sort of, you'll talk it through with me, and we'll work through what makes sense and how you want to organize the data in your site. So do we need to open a new case for a certain situation, or might we want some additional information through the sidebar? let's see, what else I want to talk about here. If you link other records, like a person record or an organization record, like here on the team, you can click these links and access that record, right? So now I can see the phone number linked here and who this person is working for, what organization do they work with, if they work for other organizations, and you've got all kinds of information as a team to store about this person too. So it can be really streamlined. It's just like their contact information, and that's all you keep, to like you've got an entire checklist of how you're dealing, what processes you have that in working with this person, or communications that are there, or you're storing this person's training and licensing information. It can be quite robust. So it's going to vary on your team's ability to do data entry and what's important to you and priorities and things like that. Okay, so on the family record, at this point, what I'm going to talk about is the sidebar links. So again, this vertical bar here. And this is really detailed information. So again, the cover page is kind of a who is this, and everything about the case is here on the sidebar. If you're toggling, this is an option for teams that are new, or for anybody, is if you have different programs, you can have different cover pages. Okay, so like for domestic, I might show different things than I'm showing for international. And the view that we're seeing here is also for the sidebar links as well. So you can have different sidebar links for different programs. They're different cover pages. You can edit the records. So once data is entered, you can come back and change it. If you had a misspelling or you need to add to the record now, it can be done through the edit form, press save, and you move forward. The case checklist is your workflow. So I'm not going to talk on this call about administering it, but I just want you to know where things are here and what this is for. So it's really the workflow for your organization, and it can be, especially for families, like with that family as well, to help share documents and retrieve documents with them. It's really, checklists are made up of a list of dates. So dated items is like, when did we do those items? A due date can be added. The system can tell you who's the responsible worker, which can be either a very specific person, or it might be set by a role, like the caseworker or the licensing worker, or somebody that's handling that specific part. And it can also relay documents and forms. So this application form, this will actually link us to the form itself. Or if the family were to have just filled out a PDF and sent it back to us through email, we could upload the application form here, so we have a copy of that also. So you can have one or the other or both. As far as terms go, document and a form, I think in English are sort of can be used interchangeably. However, in SAM, we're choosing to separate them out just so we have different terms and we can be clear about what we want to change, or how the system works, how we can communicate. So a document is an uploaded like PDF or Word doc or Excel file into the system. A form is something that a user or an end user, like a family, can enter into. So we've seen forms. Throughout the system, you're going to see lots and lots of forms. This is a form where I'm entering data into the site. A document, however, is going to be, right, like a PDF document or a JPEG. It's something that we've uploaded into the site. Let's see, let's go back to the checklist. There's a couple other things here. One of the processes that your team may go through is that this checklist may be shared through the family portal, right? So some of the items here can be shared with the family so that they can complete documentation in preparation for licensing or completing a home study. And those items that are shared, or let's say these checklist sections, I'm going to throw a term at you. This grouping here of checklist items is in a checklist section. And at least some of these items are visible to the family. It's got this little eyeball. One of the processes you as a the folks who are a caseworker may do is to reduce visibility to this checklist section for the family when it's done. So when all of these items are done, as in this situation here, I might limit their visibility, and now the family cannot see that checklist section, and so they can't make changes to it, which is good, so that one, they can't make changes to it, and two, we can prioritize what still needs to be done. So we can also open up that visibility to them again by clicking here. Okay. I think I want to stay internally on this call. So I will jump, if we have time, to public forums sort of at a little later, where we show what families can see. Let me make clear another term here is a user versus an end user. A user in SAM is going to be someone from your team who has access to what we're looking at now, like has access to get into the site. An end user is going to be like a family or a mentor or a volunteer, somebody that is external to your site that cannot log in to see other records, but they can affect their own record and the pieces of information that we're allowing them to see. So end users can have logins, right? So a family could come back and complete an application form over a period of 3 days, or they can keep coming back for a month as they're uploading documents to us, but they can never log in to the main site and potentially see other people's records. I think that's what I'm going to say about the checklist here. Actually, let me go back one more time. Make it very clear for you. For this document has not been uploaded here. This document has been uploaded. We can click and access this document to open it up and see that document. Of course, if our permission allows us to do that. As an administrator, you can look at the configuration here as well as accessing it through settings and checklist configuration. Okay, so there's kind of two ways to do it, but if you want a quick, easy way to get there, you can access or click this link here. Okay, so other things happening on the checklist or the record where that deal with the case is communications. Communications, I feel like for the most part, people are using it for all of their case notes. So this is emails that come in-person visits, potentially, notes that you've got, right? Any phone calls, any of this, that interactions that you're having between yourself and this client, or your team and this client, or potentially even between like your team members, but about this client. Okay, so certainly you can add a communication record. The date and time should be pre-filled by today's date and your time zone, right? So I do believe that the site is configured where if it's 10:30 my time and somebody's in Central Time, it's going to look like 12:30 their time. Here, we can put different list items. For administrators that happen to be new, there should be an edit link for you next to each of the lists. So you can change those values. You would click in and add or edit those values. Okay, any of these lists can be edited. Type in your notes, type in the body, save that record. You can always come back. So you can click edit You can also click these little edit links here to make sure that you can enter data in. Okay. I have this separated into those communications that are labeled as case notes and then all of our communications. It can be organized and reorganized lots of different ways. So consider what would make sense for your team. And then if you don't know how to do it, that's an opportunity for you to call support and say, hey, we really want this to be reorganized. This is how we like it. And we can talk about how that's possible or what to do. Okay. Sometimes I often also have reports linked on the sidebar. So even through communications, you can click and access all of these communications for this client. You can see that here, this client that have been entered into the site, all the communications entered, where you can sort and filter by different things. So you can find communications, right? Because my sample data has got like 41 records, but I know very well that you're going to be up in the hundreds of records for lots of your clients. And it just is difficult to search in the form. It can be easier sometimes through reports. All right, let me see. You can also through the report, right? We clicked on it from the client's record, but I could click view all and see all the record, all the communications for all clients as well. Again, that would show us those that we're allowed to see based on our permission type. Communications. Okay, so through the checklist, I uploaded documents. Or I showed documents there. Documents can also be uploaded through forms. So as an example, on a home study record, I might upload the home study document when it's complete right to this home study record. This document and the documents on the checklist and documents that might be entered through medical exams will all be pulled together into this document section. Sort of, I've started to call this like a document repository because it's like all the documents are here. Like the communications, subforms of sets or specific categories of documents can be added. So you can organize them in a way that makes sense to you. I think in most sites today, you're seeing those that have an expiration date that are upcoming versus all the documents, but it can be organized lots of different ways. You can add documents, right? So if there's sort of a one-off document that you need to have in the case file, you can add that document here. Add forms, just so you can see this, it should feel familiar. You'll either see the plus sign and it'll be on the sidebar. Sometimes you'll see it in the section heading where there will be a plus sign here as well. It's going to work the same where it takes you to this add form. You select what type of document it is, and you'll upload the file and put any other details about the document in here. Leave that. Documents also can be pulled through reports, so you can do search and finding through that as well. Okay. At this point, I think I'm going to go, hopefully I won't talk too fast, but there's like so much to look at where I want to hit some of the main things that are handled for a family so that I can jump to a youth record and look at that also. Another term is templates, and templates are going to be emails or printed documents that can pull data out of the client's record to personalize that type of document. So real quick and easy is like, like an inquiry email that's going out to the family, and it just has like, dear family name and family's first name. We received your inquiry on this specific date that's specific to them, and here's the information. This allows us not to have to copy and paste this from somewhere else, and we don't have to rewrite this every time. Templates are huge, and you can make a really professional email where all of your emails look the same, and so your brand is carried forth for all your communications that are coming out of SAM for any of your users. So I think it's an excellent tool for you. If I want to email, it goes here. If it was, and then I'll choose what email addresses. So again, I'm not having to copy and paste their email addresses from other emails. It's pulling emails that are listed off our record, or I can send it off to somebody else. I think you can also, if I click on through, I can attach documents to this as well if I needed to do that. Let's see. Okay, so templates are there. Let's go through here. So fees and expenses. This might be something that your team does, but you can have AR records. AR records might, and AR is like accounts receivable. They might also be added through other forms that your families interact with, like an application form. The family might make a payment online through the system, and that would create an application fee record, kind of like what we've got here, but show it as being paid. Hey, there's all kinds of things that you can do with accounting records in the site, and it's really just going to depend on your team's accounting system and what your needs are, is how this is used. Invoice from here to send, and then you can certainly send receipts as well, and you can obviously go in here and enter like it's been received and how much. You can edit through these forms by clicking these little individual links. Also, you can edit in bulk by accessing the edit form through the little green pencils. This is a details link. This is an edit link, and you'll see these for record types throughout the system. Almost threw another term at you, but I've done a lot of terms, so I'm gonna pull back just a second. You will see, if you're new to SAM, a case details link, and click on that, right? So one of the things that I find with folks is that there's so much in the site by default that it's a little intimidating and kind of overwhelming of like, where is everything? The best way to figure it out is to kind of click through and see. So once you know where things are, you can really like actually just click through and see it. You can also have a test record and just add different records to the site. So you can decide, do we want to add that type of record? Do we like the data that's being collected on that? Because all of that can change. Okay. But just wanted to show you kind of what's behind here is like a view of the application form. You can access home studies and background checks, parent education and references. All of that, I believe you can also access from the cover page. What else is here is like parent 1 and parent 2 details, which is like all the demographic type of information. Click in here. That can be per parent, which is like great to have, and you might not necessarily be looking at that every day, but you can access it here. And as you can see, even through their site, there is all kinds of other things. Generally, this stuff is asked on the application form. So the application form is a good spot to look at if you're utilizing that with your teams. It's a good spot that you don't have to look at all these things separately. You're seeing everything that your agency has asked the family to enter about themselves in a single spot, which is here, right? So this is sort of a view of what we've given to the family or end user externally. This is our internal view of that form. In news sites, you'll see it broken up into multiple parts on the sidebar, so you can access each part, but really it's a nice long, all the demographic information and contact. Again, anything that we may have asked them in the application form is then displayed here. Okay. Home studies. So I want something to be clear for agencies are working with families, which everybody really is under the case you can have home studies. There can be multiple home study records because home studies are updated periodically. If it's annually or biannually, or you need to do an addendum, you can add new home study records. So you might have multiple records here, and it allows you to enter like who's the agency and the worker that's responsible for, and that specific home study document versus the one that happened the previous year. Okay, so you get to keep the history. Home study is an excellent example of what we call multi-records. Yeah, it's definitely called multi-record. You'll see that term forever, but I'm thinking like as a multi-record table. I almost said multi-record records. And so I'm like, oh, I don't want to, that's confusing. In situations where you want to keep history, or this process might be done multiple times for each person, like for each person in the home. So you need it for the like a background check. So you need it for parent one, you need it for parent two, you need it for grandma that lives in your home. You've got many records or multiple records in SAM to collect the data about that process for each person or each home study or each interview or each progress report. And majority of things in the site are multi-record tables. So here, background checks, parent education, counseling, events, referrals, adoptions, post-adoption, all of that, you just have lots of records. So multi-record table and forms, those are things that term, knowing that will help you navigate help for sure, and to think about what your team might be needing if we're talking about customization. Jump back here. So remember I talked about the details form versus the edit form. Those links are available here. If I click onto these, this is going to be this specific home study update that was completed in 2020. Not that we're not looking at any information about the 2019 home study. We're looking at this one that was based in 2020. Okay, so this can have more information that's very specific to this home study, but we don't need to see it when we're looking at an overview of all of them. Okay, so there's this like moving deeper into the system that's done through details forms. So knowing that term too, because that'll help you see that also. Background checks. The way that I've got background checks set up is one per person. I've got them also, at least in the master site, is what's in state versus out of state. I think that's pretty common for most agencies because the process is a little different, because it varies state to state of what you need to do. And there's a details form and an edit form. If I go into these edit forms, you can see lots more details about this very specific checklist for this parent for the state of Georgia. And here are the different check types that we're going to be doing. You can write notes, you could upload the files. This is also like what your team is going to do is dependent on what your team wants to do with the site. Not every agency does the same thing. And this setup may or may not work for you. So going in and doing a test and kind of seeing, do you have what you need to collect, and what you need to collect for your electronic record is going to be super important. Let's see, do I want to show anything else? Yes, actually, definitely want to show adoptions. Adoption records are happening at the point in time that there is a commitment between that family and that birth mother, or that family and that child. You can add a new adoption record. Families can obviously have multiple adoptions. The adoption is specific to one child. So if it is a sibling group, you'll have 2 adoptions or more for each child in that sibling group. And just like the other records that we've looked at, there's details and there's edit links. So we can look at this adoption very specifically. You can see there's more information here. This can be built out quite a bit. Post-adoption reports, post-correspondence, kind of depends on what your team wants to track inside of the system, but certainly this is intended to carry forth all of the case management that's happening around this adoption, and all the adoptions for your organization, or placements or foster placements too for your organization. Okay, so from here, I'm actually going to move to a child record. And just so you know, like here on the adoptions, I can actually get to a birth parent or child record from these links also. So you'll see there are links and I can click them and access that child. Okay, so just sort of overview. I'm not going to go through the checklist, the communications, the documents, or the templates here. It works the same for the youth, the birth parent, the foster parent, the organization, the volunteers, etc. All of the record types in the site, those things are exactly the same. Okay, the adoptions are shown on both the family, the child, and the birth parent, depending on who in the triad is connected. Okay, so you can see that same adoption from all three sides. Adoption referrals are shown between a family and a child, and then there is something else that's like birth mother profile views is shown between the family and the birth parent. So that's sort of the matching tracking. It's like yeah, that's explanatory. Post-adoption reports, there is a scheduling system, and they can be added through auto actions as well. The scheduling system is done by set up by administrators. It could be per country or per state, depending on what the rules are, and it sets out the schedule for the post-adoption reports. So just like the home study or the background checks, there's details and edits where I can look at very specific information to this post-adoption report. Post-adoption reports, progress reports are very commonly being included in the family portal so that families can complete this or do a self-assessment, a self-questionnaire, or an assessment before your team does an on-site or in-home visit. So that we can talk about a little bit today, and we really will talk. We've got webinars, or we talk about that more on webinars that are geared around the family portal specifically, because it's just tons of information to cover. Okay, so that's the youth. I do want to just go into, gosh, what is this family's birth mother's name? A birth mother record, just so you can see. Same sorts of things are going on the cover page, and this is all dependent on how big your maternity programs are as to what information you want to collect. The one thing that is set up and is a little different is like, or is specific to the master site, is the benefits and services. I might offer, or yeah, like we might make some payments towards the birth mother for a hospital or for clothing or for utility bills or rent or things that she needs, if that is something that's done in your state. When she's connected to a birth parent, some of those fees and expenses, if they're set up, can be transferred to the adoptive family. And so there's some special settings that happen there. I'm not going through the settings here today, but you can see that. Again, there's like an ad. I just want you to be aware that that's true. Adding records, right? And so all of these things are editable by your team as far as what types of services might be passed to the family or expenses. Let's look at the foster family for a second. I think, and this is a good thing to show you too. So this family here, you can see even through a foster family side, it's very similar. The one thing that we've got on a foster family side that's not on the adoptive family side for the most of the time is like licenses. And we're going to see placements rather than adoptions. In time, I think we might end up seeing all of that stuff together, but having like a single family, that's more to come later. But we can see lists of placements. This would be a section if this family had multiple placements in their home at the same time, you would see them all here. And I think the way that this is organized right now is even if there were a discharge placement, we would still see it listed here. We could separate that out of like discharge placements versus active placements so that your team is well aware. There are some counts of kids in the home and yeah, and then placements. I'm not sure what the difference of those two are unless it's counting all placements they've ever had versus kids in home right now. For a placement record, there is, what do I want to tell you? What am I saying? Hold on, let me catch my thoughts again. There's so much to talk about. Oh, it's a placement record is one per child. So just like the adoption, one per child, if it's a sibling group that's placed, each child's going to have their own separate placement record. Okay. I think for the most part, that's what I want to show you. So we'll look at one other thing right here is parent education generally has a training year. I'm seeing that being built, this training year, even for other adopted family types or staff. So if it's not in your site, it can be added, and then parent education added rolling up underneath. So you've got the time, what are the requirements as far as hours, how much have they completed for each provider or each parent in the home, and then the actual courses or trainings that were taken that make up those hours that have been completed. Know that through templates, a lot of this information can be relayed back to the family so they know they're standing in time with your organization, and you can take them to places that they need to look. Let me go. Oh, I thought this was a family that was something I was going to show you, and it's not true here. Let's see. Is it? Gosh, I really thought it was this family. Let me open this up. Okay, well, this family works, and then I'm going to go back to Michael. Is it Mark? Okay, I'm just going to open these guys up. This is one thing I want you to be aware of. This main entity types links. This family is also a donor, and if I click on this link, I will be taken to their donor record. Families can be set as foster families. Families could be set as person records if somebody's a board member and you wanted to make that connection. Children can be set as volunteers. Now they're mentees, just so you're like keeping information together and you're connecting those records. That is an option for you to see that, and you can toggle between the two. To do that, you're going under advanced options and convert to other entity type. The other thing that I'm here now seeing that should probably mention, if you have the ability to delete records, you can also merge records. So not all users can delete, but if your permission type allows you to, you can merge records together, and that's done under advanced options. Goodness. So which family is it? Let's go back here. So I want to show you, oh, that's a donor record. The family portal, just so you're aware of what's happening and what's available there. So how to get there is under the public forum links are available to full admins. This might be a link that is given to a family in a template, like in an email, or it might be available on your website somewhere where a family can log in. And they can see information here. I think that was Lynn was asking if parent education can be shared under families like it is in the foster care side or the foster family side. And yes, that is available. Under the adoptive family side, there's parent education. So these things, and should you not see something that you want, that you need to have for your records, it can be built into your site. We do that constantly for people because there's so much in the site that you have to get used to, right? Of where are those components at, or where is that tracking done? And when you're ready to add something new, that's regularly happening. So know that we build those things into the site often. The family portal. So this is for end users. Portals can be built for any of your entity types. And we just build let's talk about terms. There are, I guess I call them internal forms for those that your team and your staff can access only, versus public forms, which are accessible to end users like families, like donors, like volunteers. They could even be for county social workers. Like I've seen some referral forms for youth that are a public form that county social workers are entering to enter a youth, to recommend a youth for your programs. What's on the family portal is completely up to your organization, because again, this can be overwhelming if your team's not ready to share this information and you're not sort of you have to own this and know where you to be able to direct your families around the site. So, but what is possible is messaging, all kinds of messaging, make them feel welcome, right? Tell them about their case, who's working on their case. You can provide communications. By default, if you got a new site today, these communications allow, if I've told the system I want to share a communication with this record, it'll be shown here, or the family can add a communication to us through the little add button, and that communication will be shown here. But if I have an internal or communication, that's not going to be shown. Okay, so it's just those that we want to be shown. You can have a messaging page to just tell them about this. They can connect to the checklist. I wonder if I have a way. So the checklist here.
I know that you said that, but I also thought about the comment that was said.
They can access the checklist. And so remember, this is that internal here. Okay, so from the family side, this checklist here, the external side, they're looking at here. So the family can download documents. They can also upload that completed document to you. There is not an electronic signature, but I generally recommend that folks use Adobe, which will give, it's a free tool that's fairly common. And pretty well standard, like for PDFs also, that allows a signature, or they can complete forms and they can enter text box. So you can see that as their signature. You can see through the differences between a form that we're offering to the family, where they can go and complete the application online. And so like entering all their demographic information and information about their family and their home, what program are they interested in, things like this, okay? Versus, again, these documents that are downloadable. And this is something that your team is setting up, like this is your PDF document. It would be whatever you want that PDF document to look like. As any of these items are completed, if you want an email, that term auto actions, that can be done, right, for a family. So somebody on your team can get an email, so know that. Or the family can get an email that's like, hey, we received that, just wanted you to be aware, okay? Hopefully this is also telling them that that's done. And remember, if I hide, am I on checklist 3? Yeah. If I hide this section internally from them, the application section, and the next time they go into this or refresh the screen, they can't see the application section anymore. which is really nice. We've seen situations where families have overwritten data, or now we can see the next things in line that need to be done. Okay. The setup of this is done by an admin in configuration. And a lot of times you're working with myself or with my team to organize this and get it ready for your families. Okay, Phil, we're like at the hour mark and there's so much to say. So what did, I talked about auto actions a couple times. We've seen them where, remember when I first opened it up, there was like this email that was triggered right there. They can open up directly to us as users. They can also be automatically sent and we're not seeing them, but we are getting those emails. Auto actions can be set like when the application's received, we might want to update the case stage. When we've got a commitment for the adoption, we want to update the case stage. That can be done. We can also insert records. So the application is received and now we're going to insert a bunch of parent education records that give us the, the schedule of courses that need to be completed for our initial home study. Okay, so things like that can be done as well. So auto actions. I do, if you guys have time, if you can stick around, I'm good to stick around for a few more minutes. I just want to show you some brief things on a report so that you're familiar and you know it's possible too. So reports can really be about almost anything in the site. Really, any of the data that's entered into the site can be extracted out. Report name, you can click on it to change it. You can add a memo. Report stats allow us to aggregate information. So instead of counting by hand, which I understand totally still happens, we can add this if you're getting your data into the site, which is why it's so important to do the data entry. The system can do that counting for you. It can summarize outputs and aggregate other information for you. This is really specific to the agency and the purpose of the report and what you're needing. And should you need any help, I'm more than happy to help organize it the way that I can. Okay. And it can count and it can do some other statistics like averaging, percentages, minimums and maximums. We can do things by, like per person. It could be per program. It can be on, like, this is placement start date. And this is our year over year of how many placements have we had. Let me check this chat real quick. To add another home study case to an existing one, how you can view the multiple records. Yes, I will go back to home studies in a second for sure. Okay, other things on the report. All of the columns here can be specific to what you need. So know that you can add more. As a user, you can click on them and you can sort ascending or descending, or you can exclude those records that don't have a value here or those records that do have a value. So depending on what we're looking for, both of them come in handy all the time. If I want to search by something more specific, I can click this search by field and then play. I use the term operator. This is what I mean when I say that. When you're pulling a report, is like, does it equal? Does it not equal? Is it empty or not empty? Or this is about multi-records. Are all of them entered for the record? So are all the post-adoption reports, are all the completed dates entered? If so, do this, right? Or find those records that have all the post-adoption records are entered, or rather not entered, right? So I want to see all of the post-adoption reports that are not completed as of yet. They want to see things in a current week, in the specific month, these are like, they get really specific for dates, like within the past, but we're including the future, if that makes sense, or excluding the future. So just sort of getting familiar with what's here. If you need help, also super happy to help you with that. Okay, because there is so much going on. Over here in search,
Question.
Oh, if
Can I ride your bike? Your mountain bike?
yeah. If you want to do a more advanced search on data that's not displayed here in a column, you can search here. Okay, so that takes you to that search. And but now I can pull from tables. I should talk about that. There's so much to talk about. Tables. It's a good thing we have multiple webinars every month.
So I can get my bike helmet.
Okay, good. Tables are the database structure for where you're pulling specific information, right? So everything isn't on the case table. It might be on, in this situation, placements, or we're looking at information about an alert, or we want to know things about the foster family. And the options here are going to vary depending on the report, the purpose of the report, and changes can be made. So if you're unsure, that's a great time to review the webinars about reports or ask for help. Let's see. So I've talked about the columns. Within the report, sometimes you can edit. So as I hover over, you can see I can edit the report. I could enter a placement end date and essentially discharge this record from the report. You may or may not want that. These things are all really personal to the agency and your team's processes. So, but no, I want you to know that that's available. I can also filter from the report. So I could change the value of active here for this record, or I could filter on active or exclude active. Okay, depending again what I'm looking for. And I think that's what I'll show you there. Know that there are options with reports. So report configuration tells me how is this report actually set up. The report name is not always going to be helpful to every person, but the report configuration allows us to say, yes, we're looking at apples to apples versus apples and oranges. They really can be, reports can show different records depending on how it is configured. Okay. You could print, you could send a bulk email to all of these records. You could print templates. Templates, which is like instead of sending an email, we're going to print a bunch of foster parent statements, for example. We might export to Excel. Admins can edit this report and get to the report builder. Admins can also add fields or report stats. You're not going to see these two options. Under advanced options, you might print address labels or export all the email addresses and bring them to your MailChimp account or Constant Contact or whatever other email that you're using. You might bulk update records, which is going to say all of these records, I'm going to enter the placement end date as today, or I'm entering the placements, I'm updating the placement status to discharge because all of these records have a placement end date, something like that. There's just hundreds of things I could do, right? We could talk forever about that. And we could also bulk insert records. And bulk insert records is like, I'm going to add a communication record for all of these children that are on this report right here. Something like that. Okay, so to answer the question that came in, I'm going to go to a family record. Home studies are here. When you, for the most part, I mean, it should be set up like this in most systems, is when you click on home studies, you are looking at all of the home studies. So many home study records are here. If you want to edit an individual home study, you can either click the details screen or the edit screen and look at that one individually. The fields that are available here, I think this is a really good, like, basic milestones. Like this is what most people have by default. Certainly agencies who've been using SAM for years have lots and lots more, or even if you're not been using it for years, but you really, this part is a priority for you and you want to have all the narrative questions and everything like that here, that could be here as well. Okay. So it's really depends on what works best for your team. And I think that was my question, or that question that came in. Oh, and adding, okay, so adding another home study record would be added here. If your family was coming back and they have a brand new case, under advanced options, you can add a new case. And this would be like they're coming in and they're in a different program. So home study should, if you're updating a home study, it should remain on the same case. There's only, yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. And you absolutely should talk to your administrator about it. And if your administrator hasn't made a decision, oftentimes they'll come and talk to myself about how to do such a thing to build that process in. Okay, let's just double check my settings. Okay, let's talk settings real quick, and then I would love to open up for questions and talk to you about the next webinar and kind of where we're going with webinars too. So once you're logged into your site for the first time, someone will have given you, your administrator really will have given you a temporary password. And the very first thing you should do is go into your person record and edit your login permissions. So you come in here and you can change your login username because maybe you like using only your first name like I've got here, or maybe you use first initial last name or whatever, something that matches what you're using for other things to make it simpler for you. And then a password, your SAM password. And if you wanted to reset it here, you're clicking that little link. You're going to put in that temporary password and then enter a new password. Your SAM password should not be the same password as something else. That's just not good practice. Is to have SAM also is containing so much personal health and identifying information that it is incredibly important to keep this information as secure as possible. So it needs to be a really secure password. There are rules here. And then if your team wants to enforce a change of passwords at a certain time period, that might be applicable for your organization as well. You can change the time zone here as well. I believe you can access this if I went into settings as a user and change my username and password. That's going to take you to the exact same spot that we were just on. So you don't necessarily have to go to your person record. You can get there and change your password. Okay, so it's just a little bit cleaner and tighter of that information that's displayed. And okay, as a new agency, if your team wants to send emails from the site, you must enter default email sending settings. That is even for the family or an end user needs to access a password. You gotta have email sending settings set up. Today, this is how this is done. You'll choose an email address. It's going to be your common email address coming out of SAM. You'll have to set it up obviously with your email server first. You'll put in the username and the password for that. Oftentimes in 2021, SAM talking to an email server, your email server is requiring an app password, which says SAM can connect through this password. And that is specific to users. That is something that's being pushed from the email providers. We've got guides online about if your email server is Gmail or Office 365, which really takes care of 80-90% of folks. If it's different, we've got to talk to your specific email provider and figure that out. And it's a weird thing right now. It's like your email password works sometimes until all of a sudden it doesn't. And then it's basically, we have to go through that app password setup. So know that if for some reason your email isn't being sent, it is very likely that SAM is not talking to your email server. So the very first thing to do for an admin really is to come into the default email sending settings, make sure that works to this advanced test email settings. And then every user has email settings as well, right? So if I want an email to be sent from me, which is SZ at InReach Solutions, not Sam at InReach Solutions, I have to put those email permissions in under my user as well. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and find my record, and I can do that from under advanced options, edit my email settings. And so I will say, yes, I want to send emails from my own account. Yes, I want email importing to be enabled. Here's my email address and my username and my password. Again, if the requirement is that you have to have the app password, like if your email password just isn't working or isn't working anymore, you're going to need to transition to the app password. And the app password is what you're putting in here. The app password is per user. It's not the same for every user. You can see I can also do an advanced test from my email account to make sure that this works. And this is really going to like, what Sam is doing is, who am I going to send that email to? Who am I sending it from? And it's going to let us know if it can connect. Okay. If it says that it can't connect, 95% of the time it's because that password just isn't working. I feel like sometimes it does a little like, it might take a few minutes or something if you've just changed your password or just initiated an app password for all the systems out there, right? Like Gmail to recognize everything. So I get that it's frustrating. I absolutely do. And try not to be discouraged because it eventually works, and it really works for 99% of folks who have it enabled as well. So usually it's those kind of situations. It's password. Email importing is going to use the same sort of connections. So there are guides on that. And I would like to, for those folks who are still on, I haven't even looked to see, there's still plenty of people on. Open it up to questions. Okay. And jump back. Please don't be shy. Your questions absolutely help other folks online. And I can't gauge necessarily where everybody is. I think we've got a mix of like folks who have been using SAM forever and those who have not. What questions do you have? So Lynn is asking if auto actions can be sent when an entire checklist is complete, and it cannot. Unfortunately, we absolutely want that, but I've tried and I can't get it to do that. Couple of workarounds and options for you is as like the last checklist item, we could say, tell us when you're done, and have the family go to a form. They check a date field, and that date field could send you an email. So you can get it, but it's not when every item is done, if that makes sense. And for due dates or expiration dates, yes, that is going to be built on that specific table where that date or expiration is. I would also work from reports. I would have reports of like documents with an expiration date or case expiration dates or home study expiration dates, and be working from that as well. So you can be sort of ahead of the game, but an email can be sent like 2 months in advance of a home study expiration so that you know for sure. And it's sort of dependent on where that expiration date is entered. Not sort of, it is 100% dependent on where that expiration date is entered. So if it is on the home study record, it's going to be an auto action based on the home study to get that. Multiple times or I fell out. So Jeanette is asking, if you enter in the termination of parental rights in one place, will it show in another? The answer is it depends on where that field is, what table that field is built on. So it's always a hard one because honestly, it really should probably be built on the child, and then that child's, and it's not even just on the child, because my understanding is there is a potential, it's rare, but there's a potential for adoptive families to terminate parental rights. So it's it's almost on the child's case, and then that child case table needs to be available on the adoptive family or the family that it's connected and the child. So say on the mom's page, I would say if you are having an issue where you've entered this field and it's not being displayed on a different page, it is probably because there are multiple fields and it's not actually the same field. So we can look at it and see together. And is there separate training for auto actions and reports? Yes, there is under support. Oops, I'm sorry, excuse me. Under help, let me go back over here. When we open up the help, there are webinars, and there are webinars for, well, of course, you don't see either one of them here, but auto actions and reports. And you can look at these to get an idea of them. There is also under here help guides about auto actions. Auto actions can be so very specific to, you might need some support in building them, like to create a templated. But yes, there are absolutely webinars that like today where you can get a feel for them, and then you might take a try at them. And if it doesn't seem to be working, what people do often is send the link and to us through support and say, this is or isn't working, what's going on? And usually we can recognize it pretty quick and we'll give some explanation. And if not, it might have to be that there's a workaround or whatever, something like that. But there's tons of information in there is information in auto actions. Try and keep it somewhat concise because more is not always better. And then under reports, I believe also, isn't there a thing separate? Yeah, for reports. Oh, good. They're all together, at least here. So using reports, report building, and then the report menus. And there's tons. There's also can I get there? Let me actually go here. Is that here? Let me see here. Our YouTube page for lots of videos also. I sort of have it organized. Certainly have it organized in a way. Of course, organization varies as to how is it in the right order for you, things like that. There are videos generally throughout the guides also, so that you should, if videos work better for you as help, you can find that there, but the videos all together are here as well. So there's building forms, there's reports, and admin how-to is a lot of that. Bye, Megan. Thank you for joining. Any other questions? Because, I mean, honestly, we could talk about, and I do talk about Sam all day for years and years. And so it just doesn't stop. Let me do this. I'll give a few more minutes to let calls come in while I go back over here and we talk about next webinar. When a second home study onto a case, how do we assign a checklist to that new home study? Okay, so for Lynn, you might want to take a look at the checklist webinars also to get a feel for those. There will be a checklist section that is configured for an updated home study. And in my opinion, you're always communicating with a family that says, hey, it's time for your home study. Either your new home study, your original home study, or your updated home study. You're still going to talk to them. You're going to send them some information. So there is this date field that I think is in most people's sites. It's like home study packet sent date, something like that. And you would click that button and that would trigger some of the checklists that open again, that are those that are for the updated home study. So we can look at that too. And we got another question coming in. Can a table be moved from one entity to another, like a family table moved to a foster family table? Yes, you cannot do that. You would have to call and talk with me about doing that. That is like really advanced kind of stuff to move around. But for the most part, it can. And we'll just talk about what it is that you're needing to do. Sometimes it is that we're copying, so it's just a little dependent, but you can do that. There's kind of crazy amounts of things that can be done with the table structure and restructuring. But yes, and for that, with that comment also, a lot of the things that you may be wondering, like, can it do this? It probably can. Where it is, I will know for sure how to get there, and will help you find that. So don't hesitate to ask. Okay. Good. Okay. So we'll talk to you soon. All right. So, for everybody, the upcoming webinar is April 21st. So next Wednesday at 10 a.m. And then there is another webinar, which is our community call, April 28th, a Wednesday at 10 a.m. So for April and May, we've got themes. This and really the next two webinars are now like our Get It Done and our community call, and they're loosely themed around new user training, right? So you can come in and you can ask questions. Some of the questions that are coming in are still administrative things, and obviously new users can also be administrators. So it is really, for the next two calls, really, it's your time. Come in. So please come in. Please put those times on your calendar and block them off so that your team can join. In May, I think the theme is on checklists, and it is some 3 Wednesdays. All of our guides our events are at our website in the events page, which I try and get to administrators and folks that I've got their email address, that or you can go to about and events. It'll take you to the same page. So all of the trainings that are out here are up, and you can RSVP and you can ask questions for all of them. Okay, so we can kind of review that before. And then starting in June, we're going to try something different. So we're going to like change things up a little bit. And June, July, and August, we're going to have webinars, I think 2 to 3 a month. I think it varies. I think July is 2, just because holidays and all of that good stuff. But starting in June, I'm going to drop the themes because people are always at different stages, different times, and I have really enjoyed our community calls. I think people really learn the most when it's really specific to what you need right then. We can be super helpful. You don't have to wait months potentially to talk to me about that. So essentially these talks, it's all going to be called SAM Talks. I am also going to vary them, like Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or sometimes on a Thursday if it works out with my schedule and time off and things like that. But sort of the goal is to hit a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and then a Thursday for the following week for an hour and a half-ish, whatever we need in that time frame, to talk to the folks that join about what's important to them right then. So think of that as like 3 free training sessions and community sessions to hear what is it that other folks are doing and what questions can we answer for you, or what can we build potentially in your site. All of that has been helpful, and we've done that in the community calls. So we're transitioning to that. It's going to make things a lot easier and open up to more folks who just can never make Wednesdays. They might be able to come in on a Tuesday or a Thursday. So please take advantage of that. Again, over here on our website under About and Events, it's there. And we hope to see you coming into those. So yeah, so much information. The new user training is insane because there's just like tons that you could potentially know. Should you have any questions after this call that have come up, please don't hesitate to click support and ask. And I hope spring has come for you. It is absolutely fantastic here in Portland. And yeah, thank you. That was just a lot for me. So to talk at you. If you have questions for like the next 2 or 3 minutes, I'll stay on. If not, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.